we're supposed to simplify this expression. Now, square root of 81 is going to be 9. Square root of w squared, that's going to be w. And this is true since if I square this, 9w, if I square it, I'm back at 81w squared. Simplify this one. Square root of 36 is 6. Square root of w squared is going to be w. And I'm going to claim that that's true since if I square 6w, square it, I get 36w squared, right? Because I take what's inside this parentheses. It's all multiplication, so I can distribute that exponent. Number 3 tells us that square root radical expressions in which the radicand is the number under the radical, has no perfect square factors are considered to be in simplest form. All right, so if you look at a radical and there's no perfect squares under there, if you can't take the square root of one of those numbers, it's in simplest form. So determine whether this expression here is in simplest form. Just answer yes or no. Here's our choices. Yes, because 6 has no factors that are perfect squares. Well, that's true. 4 has no factors that are well, doesn't matter. 4 is not a radicand. 4 is not under the radical. No, because 6 has a perfect square. It doesn't. There's no perfect squares. You can't square any number and get 6. And then 4 is not even under the radical. So let's go with this top one right here. Let's say yes, this radicand is in, this radical expression is in simplest form because 6 has no factors that are perfect squares. So what do you think? Is this a perfect square? Let's see. Is the given expression in simplest form? You know what? 256, all right, 256 is a perfect square. So what do you think? Is this in simplified form? I'm going to say no, because square root of 256 is 16, right? 16 squared is 256. You can do that on your calculator to be sure. So this number under the radical has a perfect square in it. So this could be simplified to this. We could write 16 square root of q. So let's claim now that, what do we have? What are our choices? No, it can be factored because, okay, there, that's our choice right there, because that 256 is a perfect square and it's under the radical. All right, square root of 45. Now 45 I can write as, can you think of any perfect squares that go into 45? How about 9? 9 times 5. This will give me the square root of 9, square root of 5. Square root of 9 is 3, square root of 5. So this is a simplified form of square root of 45. Square root of 20. Can you think of any squares, perfect squares, that go into 20? Well, how about perfect squares that you know? 4, 9, 16. Well, 4 goes into 20. So how about this? I can write it as 4 times 5. Square root of 4, square root of 5. Square root of 4 is 2. So 2 square roots of 5. Square root of 200. Well, I know 100 goes into 200 twice, and the square root of 100 is 10. So I'm going to write this as 100 times 2, square root of 100, square root of 2. This will be 10 square roots of 2. Square root of 16x, well, square root of 16 is 4, so I'm just going to write 4 square roots of x. I can't do anything with that square root, with that x, so I'm going to leave it as 4 square roots of x. Square root of 36x squared. Now they're telling us this. Assume that all the variables are positive or non-negative. All right, they're non-negative. So we're dealing with only 0 or positive numbers. So here's what I have. Square root of 36 is 6. Square root of x squared. Well, really, it's the absolute value of x. But if x is positive, you just get 6x. Now that 75, I can break that down into, do you know two numbers that if you multiply them together, you get 75, and one of them is a perfect square? Well, how about 25 times 3, t squared? Now, square root of 25 is 5. The square root of t squared is the absolute value of t. I'm left with the square root of 3. But we're always assuming that that the variables here are greater than 0, greater than or equal to 0. They're non-negatives. So if you put a non-negative number in here, say it's a positive number. The absolute value of a positive number is that number itself. All right, that 90 I can write like this. Let's see, I can break that into 9 times 10 because I know the square root of 9, x squared. Square root of 9 is 3. The square root of x squared is the absolute value of x. And I'm left with the square root of 10. But because x is positive, the absolute value of a positive number is that number itself. I just get 3x square root of 10.